All right, hey everybody. So I'm going to be once again remaking my Kingdom Hearts 3 custom weapons tutorial. This is going to be the final definitive version. I am not going to make any more versions of this tutorial unless we get the ability to add brand new Keyblades, in which that will be a separate tutorial, as this is custom weapon replacements. I'm just going to be going through everything again. If you have watched my previous tutorials, I still recommend you watch this one because it will have some new stuff. And namely, we now have custom materials, meaning we can do fully custom materials. We don't have to use instances of or copies of the base game's materials. We can do a lot with it. It's really cool. But basically, I'm going to go ahead and delete this skeleton because I'm going to re-import it. I'm using a commission that I'm working on as a base. So some of the stuff I already have done, but I'm going to go over how to do stuff anyways. All right, so let's go ahead and you're going to need Blender, specifically the version of Blender that you need to use with the plugins that I'm going to give you. It needs to be, this version is going to be Blender version 2.93. Some of the plugins have been updated, however, they work a little differently. Like the export plugin is now in like this little menu here, and it's kind of weird. I had some issues with it, as well as the import plugin that we need is a little broken, or it works differently on the newer versions of Blender. It imports the models as like really big, whereas this version imports them at a more normal size. If y'all figure out those issues with those other plugins, by all means use those. But for my purposes of this tutorial, I'm using Blender version 2.93. So I highly recommend using that specific version, as that's what I'm using in the tutorial. Okay, so before we get something set up here, let me or before we start with the Blender steps, there's some prerequisites you need to do. Like you said, we need some plugins. So in the description, I'm going to be including a zip file of the tutorial files, my tutorial files folder, all of these folders, as well as this IOC and import export, that stuff. So this, and this, Giaz export tools, IOC and FBX, and import IO import scene Unreal PSA PSK. You're going to need to copy these. Then you're going to want to, there's a couple different places that you can put these. I'll show you both of them. If you put them in one place, if it doesn't work, put them in the other place, basically. In your search bar, do %app data %, press enter. That'll open your app data folder. Go into Blender Foundation. Blender 2.93 is the version that we're using. Scripts add-ons. You can put them in here. This one, it looks like I actually did not put them in here. So this will be the backup if the other way doesn't work. But the other way is going to be in your disk. And it's program files x86. No, it's going to be program files. Blender Foundation 2.93, 2.93, scripts, add-ons. Go ahead and put them in this folder. Yeah, because here I have the export tools, I have IOC and FBX, and then if I scroll down, I should have the, so put them in this folder. It should work when you put them in this folder in program files. If it doesn't work, you can put them in the app data folder. Just put them in there. And then file, go to edit preferences. In the add-ons tab, just search for each of them. So Giaz, make sure that's checked on. And then PSA, this one, make sure that's turned on. The IOC and FBX, don't worry about that. That's for a different, or that's like already enabled. It's like a modification of the importing exporting FBX thing, I believe. Anyway, so once those are set up, you can start. So as you can see, I have my custom Keyblade in here. Like I said, this is for a commission, so I already have it modeled and everything. But we're going to figure out which Keyblade you want to replace. So if I open my internet browser, bring over a tab, I'm Going to go to this website. It is oh, that's the wrong one. Whoops. There we go. OpenKH.dev. Go to Kingdom Hearts 3, pawns. This is a list of all of the ID names for all the player characters, NPCs, enemies, etc. Excuse me, and this includes weapons as well. So we're going to scroll all the way down to past enemy, you're in the weapons section. So obviously you can replace any weapon in the game. There is not really a limit here. For the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to be placing one of Sora's because that's the most in-depth type one. And what most people are going to want to do anyways. So in this case, we're going to go down to the WSO section. You could go through all of these, see which one is which. In my case, we are going to be replacing the kingdom key for this commission. So that's going to be W_SO010. Next, we're going to want to pull that model of the Keyblade from the game. So what we're going to do is go to this is also in my tutorial, it should also be in my tutorial files. Yes, this is a custom build version of UModel, so I recommend you use this specific version. I do not recommend using a different version, just because, or you can use a different version, but I recommend using this version because it has this cool little use KH3 path checkbox, which if you go into umodel.cfg in this folder, right click, I would recommend downloading Notepad++ because it makes editing these files easier. I will include that link in the description. If you edit it with Notepad++, give it a second to load. No, I don't want to update the update package. Give it a second to decide that it is not responding for some reason. This section right here, in this Kingdom Hearts 3 section, everything else don't touch, ignore it, don't worry about it. Path, you're going to want to put the path that your game is installed. I know for Steam, if you right click the game, there is, like in manage, you should be able to do like open local files. That's where, and that will bring you to one of the folders, or to where your game is installed. Epic Games is usually in program files, I believe. I moved it though, so just wherever you installed your game, go to that folder. And then Kingdom Hearts 3 content packs, you want the packs folder. Just to show you an example, if you don't want to type it all out, you can just click this bar and then copy it. Obviously not the UModel folder, but wherever your game is installed, you can do that. Paste that in here in quotation marks, and then the AES key. That is going to be if you go into the OpenKH Discord server in the KH3 modding channel under pins. I believe it is the second one right now, yeah. So it's from Jack Moonward, UModel AES key. You're going to copy that and put that in right here. All right. And then when you're done with that, you can just click use KH3 path and OK. If you don't want to edit the CFG, you don't technically have to, like I said, but I recommend it. But if you don't want to, this is going to be the game where you want to go to where you have the game installed. So click the little three dots. I have a shortcut to my mods folder, so I'm just going to do that and go up one to the packs folder and click select folder. I'm going to do override game detection, Unreal Engine 4. I'm going to go on and off of it because the use KH3 pack thing messes with it a little bit. And then you scroll down to Kingdom Hearts 3. It has a specific thing because Kingdom Hearts 3 uses a custom built version of Unreal Engine. It's not one of the ones you can download from Epic Game Store, which we will get into that later. And then you just click OK. I'm going to use KH3 path just because that's easier. Again, you don't have to, but I recommend it. All right. Give it just a second. It will load. There's like a window that pops up. You can see it's loading everything. And then once it's done, it will pop up with this window. This is the games files, basically, for the weapons go into the character folder, go down to WEP, go down to the ID number. So in my case, it's kingdom key, so WSO010 right here. Into model. You can ignore this. This will not be there. In fact, this is actually from the commission that I'm working on that but yeah, that's fun. But click WSO010, click export. I'd recommend not changing the texture format from TGA, keep it on there. Don't change skeletal mesh from PSK, etc. And then, okay. That's done. Next, we open the folder, or open Blender, rather. Then do File, Import PSK. If you installed the add-on correctly, you should now have the PSK option. Next, we're going to go to where UModel is. I should do this again really quick. Export. This little file is where you want it to export. It should default to an export folder. If it doesn't, just make sure to I recommend putting the export folder in your whatever folder you have UModel in. But yeah, that's where it'll put that model. So I already have the shortcut. I can show you if I back out. It's going to be export game character web, same file folders and everything, SO010 model, and then the PSK. I'm going to import it, and now we have the kingdom key in here, which I will move it just to show. There we go. Let's Control Z to move that back. Excuse me. So you're going to want to take your custom model. In my case, it's already lined up, but you want to line it up with the same as kingdom key. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be, the handle needs to be the same place. It needs to be pointing this way. The edge that will be attacking the enemies needs to be facing down. So this is the striking edge down here. Teeth need to be pointing up. If you're not doing a keyblade, you're doing like a sword or something, again, just make sure that the striking edge is on the bottom. And then we have the chain on this side and everything. And then I would recommend making sure the chain, that the first pivot point, wherever you're going to want the first pivot point of the chain to be, I recommend making it at least the same as the kingdom key, or as where the first one, let me rephrase. I recommend having it be at least in the same place or further down this way. I don't recommend having it any sooner than this. It shouldn't matter too much, but I've had issues when I try to move a bone inward. So I recommend having it be around the same place, if not further out. All right, once it's all lined up, first of all, make sure your custom model is highlighted. Press Tab to enter edit mode. You'll see like the object in a wireframe. Press A to make sure everything is selected. Everything will turn orange. All right, and then press Tab again to enter object mode. Click the kingdom key in this case, or whatever model you're going to be replacing. Press Tab again to enter edit mode. Hold Alt and press A. That will deselect everything, so everything will be gray. Press Tab again to enter object mode. Excuse me. And then click your custom model. Hold Shift and then click the base game model. So your custom model should have a darker orange outline, and the base game's model should have a lighter orange outline. Then hold Control and press J. That will join them together to make them one object. Press Tab to enter edit mode. You should see your model should be all orange and the base game model should be all gray. Hold Control, press I. That will invert the selection. Press X and then F, and that will delete the base game model. All right. So now we just have our model. Now, if you notice, these little things, these are bones. These are basically the pivot points for the chain. They're not all lined up, so we're going to move them. All right, so then we're going to click in object mode. So just press Tab if you're in edit mode. You're going to click it so that all the bones turn orange, then press Tab to go into edit mode. And then you're going to want to move your bones to where you want the pivot points to be. So in my case, I want them, the first one to be the little clasp, and then that to be every 2 links until we get to the last one, in which case it will be just 1. Now this last one, whichever keyblade you're replacing, they will always have an extra one at the end. This is not a pivot point. This is basically, I believe it's used to determine like the collision, so the chain doesn't clip through the floor. So this should go at the very end. It's not actually a pivot point. Again, it should just go at the end. All right. Press tab to exit edit mode. They should all be lined up. Click your custom weapon. And again, if you don't have a chain, you can obviously skip this point. But I'm going over because most people will do keyblades, and that's part of the keyblade. So click your custom weapon, press tab. Up here on the top, there's this X-ray button. Click that. That'll just make it see-through and make selecting things a little easier. Then with this tool selected, you can drag a box to select some of it. Obviously, this didn't select all of it, but if your model is set up properly, you can do hold Control, press L, and that will select everything connected, and that should select most of it. If it doesn't, you may need to go in and select more things manually, but basically you're going to want to select everything that you want to be the connected to the first pivot point, and only the first pivot point. The stuff after it you can ignore for now. So in this case, this is the first chain link, quote unquote, on the first pivot point. Go on to the right side, this little triangle with the dots on the corners. In the vertex groups, scroll up, select chain 1 and select assign. Then deselect. Then we're going to move on to the next section. This is going to be chain 2, so I'm going to select these two because they're for the second pivot point. Control L. And then select chain 2 and click assign, and then deselect, and so on and so forth. Do the same thing for the rest of them. So that's chain 3. That's chain 4. This chain 5 is just one link, so I'm just going to select that one. And then chain 6 is this one, so I'm going to select all of it. Again, depending on how your model is set up, it might be a little bit more complicated, but it's not too hard to figure out. I'll go over later how to figure out if something specific doesn't end up assigned to a pivot point, because you will get an error message if that happens. So now we're going to go through all the chains and just select them. Okay, now all of them are selected. I'm going to do Control I to invert. Now the keyblade itself should be selected. And then on the web bone, assign it to the web bone. One more thing you want to do here, under this UV map section, this will just help later. If I go into texture paint right now, oh, that's the wrong texture. Hang on. There we go. You'll notice it doesn't look right. That is because these are messed up. So minus. The UV map, it has more UV maps that are messed up. So in my case, my actual UV map, if I click it, you can see it's correct. So I want to delete the other ones, just so it doesn't mess anything up. And now it looks proper. Okay, then I'm going to go back to layout. But yeah, so now everything is rigged and it's ready to export. So what you want to do is up here, double click this till you are able to edit it, and then do backspace 3 times so it doesn't have the .ao. Should be just the WSO0100. And then we're going to go to this section right here, scene properties. Scroll down to the export tab. Basically, you just want to copy the settings that I have here. These you shouldn't have to change. This one will have a couple checkboxes. All of them should be unchecked. Primary bone axis should be changed to Y. Then you need to select the export path. Before you do this, make sure to file, save, your .blend file into the folder that you want to export it to. Click save, and then you should just be able to press the folder and then press accept, and that'll be the same folder that you just saved the blend file to. This you can ignore. This section, all of the checkboxes should be off except for the last one, which is pack objects, and then you can click export. As you can see, my export was successful. If you get the most common error messages you will get that will make the export not successful is either ungrouped verts or faces with more than 3 vertices. So basically, to fix that, what you want to do for the faces with more than 3 vertices, click your keyblade, press tab, press A, and then hold control, press T. One thing I forgot to mention, make sure you have the skeleton selected when you're exporting, not the model. The skeleton with the orange, or with the bones. The bones should be orange. That means that's selected. That's when the right settings. If you notice, if with the keyblade itself selected, there's different options. Make sure you have the skeleton selected. But yeah, the control T, that will fix the faces with more than 3 vertices error, because it's looking for a model with triangles rather than higher, like more polygons with more edges rather. If you have the ungrouped verts error, what you can do is up here on the top left, make sure this is on vertex select, which is the dot, and then do Alt A, and then go through, in this section, go through all of your bones, click select on all of them. There we go. Click select on all of them. Make sure not to do A with the, not to press A with your thing, with your mouse over this section, because that will select everything when we're trying to figure out which ones are not. So again, make sure with none of them selected, I'll do it again, make none of them selected, go through all of the bones and do select. And then once they're all selected, do Control I, that will invert the selection. And if you have something that's not assigned to one of the vertex groups, you will see, or you might see, an orange little dot. If you don't, press this little arrow key, and then you'll get the arrow for where it is, and you can move it to see exactly where it is. And then after you move it, Control Z to undo to put it back, and then assign it to the proper bone. So again, everything for that's on the keyblade itself should be WEP, and then this is bone 1, this is bone 2, or this is chain 1 rather, this is chain 2, this is chain 3, this is chain 4, chain 5, and chain 6. Not all keyblades will have the same amount of chain links. Some of them have 5. I think one of them has 7. One of them has 4, I think. So it's just however many you need, but pretty easy to figure out which one it needs to go to. And then once you've fixed those, you should be able to go into, again with the skeleton selected, you should be able to go into and export that. So we are now, for now, done with Blender. All right. So next thing we are going to do is going to be in Unreal Engine 4. So if I go, I have my Unreal Projects folder. I'm going to my TraceGame Mats webs folder. So basically, you need to, for Unreal Engine, like I said earlier, you cannot download one of the versions from from Epic Game Store, rather. Excuse me. You can't download one of those because it's not going to work properly. The only thing that will really work properly in that version is images, textures, basically. That's the only thing that works like completely flawlessly, basically. So we have in the OpenKH Discord, there is a custom built version of Unreal Engine, rather, in the KH3 Tools forum. This pinned post, you can just go into this this link here. UProject and engine installation. You can try the automated install. I know some people have had issues with this. If that doesn't work, do the manual install. But basically, that will go through installing both the custom engine version and the custom TresGame U project. Once you have both of those installed, unfortunately, I'm not going to be going through how to install those because these tutorials are perfectly good, whether you do the automated or the manual. They work perfectly fine, so just follow those, get those installed. Once you have those installed, wherever you put your TresGame project, you're going to want to open tresgame.eu project. Just give it a second. It's going to take a second to load, but this should open up the custom engine version if you installed it correctly. There we go. It's opening up. All right. Now we have the U project open. When we start, you're probably just going to end up in the content folder. You won't have all of these folders. You'll have some of them, but you're not going to have all of these. It doesn't really matter. But before we start anything, there are some settings you need to change in this. Go up to Edit, Project Settings. That will bring up this window. Go to Packaging. This will be checked to turn it off. Use pack file, make sure that is off. Scroll down a little bit. Make sure cook everything in the project content directory, turn that off. And then cook only maps on. If you're not actually making any maps, you can just ignore this list of maps section. What you want to do is additional asset directories to cook and the directories to never cook. So some of these are kind of messed up. I think effects is in the never cook and shader is in the never cook. We don't want either of those in never cook. Other than that, you can pretty much ignore never cook. However, in the additional asset directories to cook, make sure to press, look through all of these, make sure it has character, effects, and UI. Those are the three that you absolutely need to have: character, effects, and UI. And then shader, make sure shader is not in never cook. But other than that, you don't need to add shader to this one. Other than that, you can ignore these, ignore the rest of these. It will probably have some, just leave them there. Don't worry about it. But in this case, make sure you have character, effects, and UI in additional asset directories cook. If any of those are not there, click the plus, click the three dots, select that folder, and then that's it. Or you can type it in manually. It doesn't matter. But yeah. And then you can close this window. All right. Next, we're going to go into in your content folder. I already have it, but make a folder. Do right click, new folder, make a folder called character. Inside character, make a folder called wep. Inside wep, make a folder with the ID number or name of the Keyblade you are replacing. Inside there, make a folder called model or MDL. Inside there, make a folder called mat0, and then we'll leave it there for now. As you can see, I already have everything. I'm actually going to delete everything because I'm going to redo it. Because like I said, this is a commission that I'm working on. I decided to just re-record my tutorial now while I'm working on this one. All right, so these are empty, but you're in the MDL folder. You have a mat0 folder there. Click import, find where you exported your model, and then open it with the import window. There are a couple settings you need to change when you first are doing this. This might not be dropped down. Go ahead and do that. Basically, just copy my settings here. These should both be checked, no problem. These you shouldn't need to mess with. Import. This should be import normals and tangents. And then scroll down, and then change mgeneric, or change the base material name to mgeneric, and then base texture property to diffuse. This will we're going to change the material that it's using, but this will basically just import a material instance that you can, or in most cases, a material instance that you can use, and the texture that you were using. If it doesn't, it's not a huge deal. It just makes things a tiny bit quicker. And then click import. In my case, it imported the material as a base material, not an instance, so we'll go over that in a minute, what to do for that. But I'm going to move the material and the two textures into mat 0. And then we are going to save all of these. So what we're going to do, the physics asset, you want to rename it to be the same as the base game one. Most of them, all you need to do is remove the word asset. For Kingdom Key, for whatever reason, it also doesn't have a 0 when most, if not all, of the other ones do. But just rename it so it's the same. There we go. And then with the skeleton, rename it. You should be able to name it anything, but what I recommend is just changing the SO to something that you will remember. So in my case, I'm going to change it to a GL, because that's an abbreviation of the username for the person I'm doing this commission for. Then with the skeleton selected, hold Control, press W. That will duplicate it. Rename it. So remove the 1. It'll automatically add a 1 at the end. Remove that 1, and then change it back to SO. The reason we do this instead of duplicating it and then renaming it to this one is because this mesh already has this skeleton assigned to it, and we want to keep it as our custom one, whereas this is the base game one that we're going to be using as a reference. So double click the skeleton to open it, your custom one. Over here on compatible skeletons, press plus, put the base game one into there. Again, the ID number, in my case, it's Kingdom Key, it's matching Kingdom Key. It should match whichever one you are replacing. So if you're replacing Elemental Encoder, for example, that would be WSO 120. Then under Ignore Nodes, press plus, and then chain 1. That's all you need to do in this section. Over here, however, we're going to add 5 sockets, which are basically just additions to a skeleton that basically tell, in this case, it tells it the start and end point of the attack hitbox, as well as the start and end point of the swing trail, as well as where to put the effect when casting magic. So on WEP, you're going to right-click WEP, click Add Socket. First one, make it ATK_00. That's capital ATK and then _00. For this one, all you need to do, change relative location to 180. So for all of the sockets, all of them are going to change the relative rotation on X to 180. All 5 of them are going to do that. Other than that, for ATK00, that's the only edit you need to make. Don't change it. Don't change anything else. Add another socket, make this ATK_01. Let's again change relative rotation to 180. And then relative location on X, put that at the end of the Keyblade. In my case, I'm going to put it at 97. This is basically the end tip of the hitbox. And then once again, add a new socket onto WEP. This one we're going to call VFX_call. This is the one where you want magic to appear on the Keyblade, or like the light effect magic to appear when you cast magic on the Keyblade. This one, it's not going to be quite at the tip typically. It's going to be right around here, so I'm going to put 75. You can put this wherever, but typically it's just a little bit below the tip, usually somewhere around the teeth on the base game ones, but again, you can put it wherever you want. Then WEP, add socket. This one is going to be VFX_top. This one should match your ATK01 one. So in my case, 97 and then 180. Did I put 180 on that? Yeah, okay. Yeah. And then the last one we're going to add is VFX bottom. this is going to, so VFX top is the top of the swing trail, VFX bottom is the bottom of the swing trail, I believe, at least. Whoopsie, 180. Okay, this one is going to go right around the base of the hilt. So in that case, I'm going to put it at 10. All right, that's all you need to do for the skeleton. So make sure you save it and then exit. Next, we are going to make sure the physics are going to work on the chain. If your Keyblade doesn't have a chain, you can skip this step. But basically, under Asset User Data, under Skeletal Mesh, with your model open, press the plus, make this drop down KBD Asset User Data. Drop down, press the plus, go down to this plus, press this twice. Press, change the first one to Bonamic, the second one to Kinedriver. Drop down the Bonamic twice. Under here, we're going to need to make a Bonamic asset. So in your content browser here, right click. Also, by the way, if you don't see this sidebar, make sure to click this button that just puts the sidebar. That makes it just way easier to navigate. I should have mentioned that earlier, but under in this folder, right click, go to miscellaneous, data asset, select SQEX Bonamic asset, select. Then we're going to want to name it. Excuse me. In this case, it's Kingdom Key. Excuse me. Jeez. You're going to want to name it WSO010 Bonamic. Again, you just want to match the name of the Bonamic for the base game one you are replacing. And then back in here, under this first plus, you're going to put this Bonamic asset and then save. And then that is all you need to do for keychain physics on your Keyblade. Before I move on to material, couple special things for particular Keyblades. So, for example, if you are replacing Sora's Oathkeeper or Oblivion Keyblade, they usually use the skeleton of Roxas's. So if I go into, for example, Sora's Oathkeeper and Oblivion is WSO 210 and 200 and 210. In model, you can see I only have a custom skeleton. You see it's SC, it's not SO. So I only have a custom skeleton in here. And if I go into Oblivion, it's going to be the same. You only have a custom one, not the base one. So when you are making your custom skeleton for Oathkeeper or Oblivion, the base game one should be named, for Oathkeeper, it should be WEX090 0 skeleton. And then Oblivion would be WEX100 0 skeleton. And they need to go into the folder, the WEX 090 and 0100, or in WEX 100 rather. If I can find those really quick, you can see this is, as you can see, this is Oathkeeper, this is Roxas's copy, but it has the skeleton. It also has a custom one because I have a mod replacing it, but this is the one you're going to want to reference, and you're going to want to put your dummy reference for the skeleton into that folder in Unreal. So you're going to want to make that same folder structure down to the model and put that in that folder. Those are the only ones that are really complicated when it comes to that. Brain fart, sorry. Those are the only ones that are different like that, off the top of my head, that you might want to replace typically. There might be a couple more that do a similar thing, but those are obviously Oathkeeper and Oblivion. Those are pretty common weapons to replace. So just remember, if you're doing that, when you're making your custom skeleton and you're putting it in the base game reference into this, it should be named for Roxas's copy and put in the folder of Roxas's copy. But yep, so that's all we need to do for the model itself. Next, we're going to move on to materials. So we now have custom materials in Kingdom Hearts 3. So what I recommend you do, I believe in my tutorial files, am I including... Am I including? I should be including the. I may not be. Oh yeah. Oh no. I might not be including these. So what I basically if I forget to include them, or no, I will be including them. Basically, sorry. Um, one of the modders in the OpenKH server, Eproidtix, you may know him from the Colosseum mod or the Zodiac Phantom Aqua mod. He made a his own custom materials. So I'm going to be including this Apromats folder, some custom materials, including a weapon folder, or a weapon material, rather. And then I have also made my own, which are based off of his, so credit where it is due. I copied his and made my own modifications to it. In my tutorial here, I'm going to be using mine, which is going to be almost the exact same as using Apro's, but yeah, almost the exact same. I just added a couple new options, which I'll go over later. And a couple like edits to what he did that are just my preference. So yeah, basically, I'm going to be using mine, but I'm going to be including both of these. Make sure to put both Apros and mine into your project. So basically, in the folder that I'm going to include, you're going to want to go into your Tres Game project folder, go into content, into shader, and then you're going to want to put Apromats and Dallin Mats in there, in this folder. Both of them should be in there because since I copied his and edited it, it still uses some of his material functions, so you're going to need that when you're doing it. All right, hey, a little interjection while I am editing. So for this section where you are putting the my custom weapon material and Apro's custom weapon material into the folder, little edit. Basically, in my tutorial files, I'm going to be including this materials folder. Go into this, copy both the maps and shader folder, and then in your project content folder, let me delete that really quick. In your project's content folder, paste them into the content folder. Don't put them in the shader folder, put them in the content folder. That's all you need to do. Slight edit to what I was doing just to make sure I included everything that Apros needed. But yeah. Okay, so once both of those are in your project folder, go to your Mat 0 folder. In my case, you can see on the bottom here, it's light green. That means it's a base material and it's not a material instance. So we need a material instance. So what I'm going to do, if yours is light green, I'm go ahead and right click it and click create material instance, and then you'll have a dark green one. If it's already dark green, don't worry about it. I'm going to save this and then I'm going to open it. And then we're going to scroll down here. Scroll down here to the parent. Actually, you don't need to scroll down in this case because there's nothing above it. But under parent, do the drop down and then do M underscore weapon D. M underscore weapon is Eproidtix's. M underscore weapon D is mine. So I'm going to be using mine for the purposes of my tutorial, like I said. But Apros works almost the exact same way, like I said. I'll go over the things that I edited and added, but other than that, everything works the exact same. Next, first thing we're going to want to change is these sections right here. Base color. You're going to put your base color texture. Normal text, you're going to put your normal map. If you don't have a normal map, you can do this drop down and then you can type T underscore placeholder normal. I have a few. You should only have one when you do it. And if you look at the path on the right there, the little window, it says /game/maps/common/textures. That's the one you want to select. In my case, I have multiple. You should not have multiple. So the only one you should have to worry about is this one, game maps, common textures. That's basically, if you don't have a normal map, just select that one. And that's just a blank normal map. I do have one. And in my case, I'm actually going to up the strength of the normal map because the one that I have is not quite as strong as I want, so I'm going to just double it. That just makes the... if you don't know what a normal map is, it basically just adds shading to a flat face to make it appear to have more depth than it does. Now, if you'll notice with this material, you can already see some sort of leather details and metal details and cloth details, but they're not going to be, as of right now, they're not going to be in the place that you want them to be. What you're going to want to do is make a mask texture. So in my case, I took my base texture and I made two different textures for it. I made the RGB version and the E version. That's going to be where I want the emissive stuff, the stuff to glow. Excuse me, sorry. So basically what we're going to want to do, excuse me, what we're going to want to do is basically just take these two. So let me rephrase. For the RGB version, that's going to be your metal, your leather, and your cloth. Now by default, or you can change these, but I'm going to go over the default settings for these. You'll notice metal mask channel is red, so anything you want to be metal is red. Anything nunomi is cloth in Japanese, I believe. So anything you want to be sort of cloth-like is green, and anything you want to be leather is blue. So basically, just edit your texture. Make any sections that you want to be metal completely red, just red. So like for example, if I open this in paint.net, which is what which is, oh my gosh, I had that, which is the program that I recommend for editing images. Sorry, I am all over my words today. I apologize. If I go into paint.net, you'll notice it is just straight full red, no green, no blue. This one is straight blue, no red, no green. And then this is emissive, so I'm going to make that black. So anything that you want to glow, make it black. All right. And then for the E version, anything that you want to glow, make it white, and then make everything else black. And there's a reason we need to do two separate textures for the way that I do this. So basically make these two. So again, E, anything you want to be emissive or glow, and then RGB for the metal, leather, and cloth. In my case, I don't have any cloth, but then you're going to open these with GIMP. I'll leave a link to GIMP in the description. But GIMP has this cool feature where you can deconstruct and reconstruct images by their color channels into grayscale images, which I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. So I'm going to go to make sure this is image mode RGB for the RGB one, and then make sure the E or emissive one is going to be image mode grayscale. And go to the RGB one, go colors, components, decompose, just RBG, and then make sure decompose to layers is checked on. Click OK. Then you can see all the red is now a grayscale image, and if I go to layers over here, you can see the green and blue as well. So over here, going to go colors, components, compose. Change this drop down to RGBA. These should already be the red, green, and blue layers. Change alpha to your other E image. To note, they need to be the same resolution, which if you edited your texture, they should be already. Click OK. Now you can see, oh, it just looks like just the black emissive part, but if I turn off the alpha channel, you can still see the red and blue. Then go to File, Export As. Give it just a second. For some reason, mine starts in the System32, which sometimes crashes the export image window. If that happens, just click the top bar of the GIMP and it'll reopen the image. Go to where you want to export it. then name it something. So in my case, I already have it. So Glaxon key M. Make sure that you make it a .tga. That is important. It cannot be a PNG. It needs to be a TGA. And then export. I'm going to replace the one that I already have in there. Export. There, it's done. We'll go back to Unreal Engine. We're now going to import that mask texture. Just Glaxon key M in my case. Scroll back up and then turn mask texture on and then put your mask texture. Now you can see all of the stuff that I wanted to be metal is now metal. The handle is leather, and then this stuff is emissive, it's glowing. So now you can mess with the settings. I'll go through them briefly, but there's not a lot you should need to mess with. They should all work pretty fine. The only thing that you might want to change is going to be the either the metal normal strength, the pattern ID, which is basically just how the metal looks. Some of them are not complete, as you can see here, but just kind of scroll through them, see what you want to do. For me, in my opinion, the default works just fine, which in my case the default is 7, which is a scratched metal look. Another one that you might want to do, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was toward the end. 62 maybe. It's kind of dirty metal looking, but you can look at these and kind of mess with them. In my case, the scratched or brushed metal look looks just fine. One thing that you might want to do is the tile blend can also, again, you can mess with these settings to see what they do. The other thing is the tiling amount. That's another big one. It's basically just determines how detailed the tiling is, or like how big or small the details are, rather. Again, I think the default ones work fine, but you can mess with these to your liking. And that goes for all the metal, the cloth, and the leather. In my case, I'm just going to leave them all default. You shouldn't need to change those. The thing that you might want to change is the emissive. So in this case, for Apros, he just has this emissive param. He does not have this ult param, which I added, which I'll go over in a second. What you might want to do is make it brighter. So in this emissive column ult, you might want to just make this like all 10 or something. That makes it all brighter. So if you just want to make it brighter but not change the color, you want to make sure to change all of the RGB to the same color, or you can make a specific color. So if I want to change this to be more red, I can just do that, as you can see. Again, this is something you can mess with. I'm not going to be using this for this weapon, but that's just to show you how that works. In my case, this is something that I added to this material is the ult emissive. So kind of, I attempted to recreate the Ultima Weapons kind of galaxy effect. So in that case, do this check mark, turn it on. That changes it to look like this, as you can see. I've had some weird things where it randomly changes back to the normal emissive. So if that happens, just save it and then turn this off and on, and it should be fine. But as you can see, it's got like kind of a foggy background, and it's got stars, and they're kind of parallaxing. That's how I like, that's like my favorite type of emissive in this game is the Ultima Weapon type effect. So I tried to recreate it as best as I could, and yeah. Again, these are more settings you can mess with. This is the base color molt. So as you can see, that looks a little brighter than I want it, so I put it at 0.5. There's tiling and the height for the stars. There's the star color. The fog emissive molt, so I can change that to 10. That makes it really bright. So on and so forth. Again, this is basically just however you want to do it. Or What if I, yeah. Uh, you can mess with these, do it however you want. I change the settings to where I think they look really good by default. So it's whatever you want to do. You can mess with these however you want. AO, that's ambient occlusion. If you don't have an ambient occlusion mask, just leave this alone. Don't worry about it. Then I added, so basically, I'm sorry, I am stumbling over my words a lot. One thing that that took me a while, because we've had custom materials for a while. One thing that took me a while to remake this tutorial finally is that figuring out some of the things that the game does within those materials that would otherwise kind of make them look bad or break. Which is there's four things. Three of them are here, and I'll show you the fourth thing later. But one of them is anti-volume, which is what the Keyblade looks like when it goes into rage form. So this changes to 1. You can see it goes all dark, kind of bluish, like rage form. Then there's ice, which basically when you get frozen, the Keyblade freezes as well. So this is something that I changed from Apros that I will go over a little bit later, but I made it what I think looks like a better ice material, and it basically entirely swaps the material for ice. Whereas Apros kind of adds an ice overlay. If you want to use that, perfectly fine. I think it looks good too. But yeah. And then opacity fade. This is the most important one because if you when the Keyblade disappears, like it is desummoned, if you don't add this, it'll kind of linger in Sora's hand a little bit too long and then pop out of existence. Whereas this makes a very smooth fade with a little bit of noise. Again, Apro made this little effect. Props to him, credits to him. He did really good with this. But yeah. So those are settings that you need to have in a custom material. I'll go over those briefly if you want to make a fully custom one rather than use mine or Apros as a base. One thing that I also did is if you want, basically you can change the color that is multiplied to the Keyblade in anti-form, or if you want, I have this option is alt text anti. If you turn that on, that messes with it entirely, so I won't mess with that. But basically, if you turn that on, you can then use this parameter, which is an entirely alternate texture. So if I just, as an example, click this and I go into anti-volume, you'll notice it entirely swaps the texture for anti-form. So this is just a cool, nice feature that I added to Apros as a change to Apros, that basically if you want, you can change the texture entirely for rage form. In my case, I'm not going to be using that because I don't have an alternate texture, but again, that's just an option there that you can use if you want. All right, and then once that's done, actually, let me give it a second to save. Let me turn anti-volume back to 0. So when you're actually going to save your material, don't change these all, or like just leave these as unchecked and at 001. Don't change them at all because the game handles those itself. Then I'm going to make sure everything is saved and my material's done. That's all I need to do for the material. Really briefly, I will go over if you want to make your own materials, you can go into mine. There's a couple things that you need to do. One thing, this is the fourth thing here, is in some of the worlds, for example, Toy Box or Scala Ad Kylum, if you have a missive on your Keyblade, it gets, like, the brightness of it gets really badly doled down. So this is basically, you're going to want to take whatever is plugging into your final emissive color, divide it by eye adaptation. You could just copy this if you want, and then plug that division back into emissive color. Basically, the post-processing in some worlds, like I said, just really nerfs the brightness of emissives. So this just fixes that. Next thing is opacity fade. Again, Apro made this effect. I just copied it and I separated it from his material function. You can use his material function if you want. I personally prefer to have them separate because it just adds a little more freedom to the ice and the anti, like I said. All right, so in this case, just copy this and then have whatever is plugging into your opacity mask plug into that. If you don't have anything plugging into your opacity mask, just plug a 1 into B here, like a constant 1. So just press 1, click, and then change the constant to 1 into this lerp. But if you already have something plugged into your opacity mask, plug it into this. All right, next is the ice. So I made a whole custom ice material. If you, excuse me, if you want to do that, you could just, if you want to use mine, just copy this whole section and then have this make material attributes, plug it into a blend material attributes from whatever you can kind of, again, if you don't know anything about Unreal Materials, don't worry about this section. This is just for people who are familiar with this. So you might be a little confused, but basically have whatever your actual material is plugging into a blend material attributes with the alpha being the ice parameter. Don't rename this parameter at all. Same with the opacity fade. Don't rename this parameter at all. Leave it as is. And then finally, anti-volume. This is what I did for this, either the texture or the color. And then, so for the color one, take your RGB values, plug them into the two adds, and then divide by 3. This just averages the 3 to grayscale it. And then anti-color multiply that by the result of the grayscale, and then lerp either that or the anti-color text into this parameter, and then lerp that into the base color with the alpha being anti-volume. So if you're making your own material, copy this section, copy the ice section, copy the opacity fade section. Okay, so again, if you weren't, excuse me, if you aren't familiar with any of that, don't worry about it. This is just for people who make their own materials in UE4. And for those people, if you want to make it a little bit easier, Apro made the anti-opacity ice material function that also uses the black and white function. You can just use that. I made my own because I wanted a couple more options and I wanted a ice that looked a little bit better in my opinion, but no dissing to Apro at all. This is just my personal preference. He does an amazing job. But yeah, so you can use either, whatever you want. This is just for the sake of my tutorial. I'm just showing mine, obviously. But yeah, so that's it for the replacing the weapon itself. There's a couple more things that we want to do to make sure there's no like weird artifacts from previous Keyblades. So one of the things that we want to do is going to be the summon effect model. So when you summon or desummon a Keyblade, it has a little animation, right? And part of that animation, it has a copy of the Keyblade's model without the keychain that acts as a sort of ghost version of the Keyblade. Like it's kind of transparent and it fades in and out. That's just part of it. So we're going to want to export a copy of our model without the chain to okay. Yeah, it's just a copy of our model to use for that summon effect. So we're going to go back into Blender. I already have it open. Easiest way to do this, click the skeleton, delete it, don't need to worry about it. Click your model, press tab, go into this section, select, do Alt-A to make sure nothing is selected, select, and then on web, do select, hold Control, press I, invert, XF, that deletes the chain. Then it's already lined up. It should be perfect like this. The only exception, because for some reason there's an exception when there doesn't need to be, the only exception is if you are replacing ever after. And we'll go to ever after right now to show you. If I go into effects, WEP, ever after is WSO070, and then model. You'll notice it's oriented differently. This is the only one that does this. I don't know why. It's weird. But if you're replacing ever after, just use this tool, rotate it, change this to 90 degrees so that it's pointing, the teeth are pointing to the right there. Again, I don't know why they did that. And then once you do that, excuse me, do object apply all transforms. And then you're good for that for ever after. For every other one though, don't worry about it. Just leave it as oriented as is, and scaled as is and everything. So what we're going to do to find out what we need to save that file as, if you're replacing ever after, you can see it right here. But you're going to want to go to the Keyblade you are replacing the effects folder of it. So effects WEP, and then in my case Kingdom, and in this case Kingdom Key, go into model, and then typically it's going to be named SMD or IMD or KMD or XMD, MMD, something like that, and then the Keyblade ID, so SO010, and then either 00 or key 0 or key 00, something like that. You can look through all of these just to make sure you have the right one. In my case, it's this one, so I'm going to name it SMD SO01000. Go to Blender, do File, Export, FBX. Go to the folder you want to export it to, and then in my case, SMD SO01000. And then click Export FBX. There we go, it's done. And then go back into Blender, or not Blender, into Unreal. Go to your content folder, make a new folder called Effects. I'm going to close this window because I don't need it open anymore. Let me save this, sorry. Because apparently I edited it when I didn't mean to, but oh well. There we go. Okay, and now I can close it. Okay, make a folder called Effects, go into Effects, make a folder called WEP, go in there, make a folder called your weapon ID, so in my case WSO010. In there, make a folder called MDL, then do import. That's the wrong one, hang on. SMD SO010, you're going to import your effect model, not the skeletal mesh. Most of this, you can just delete the material and textures. You don't need any of that. You just need the model, which has the white underline, and then save it. That's all you need to do for that. Another thing you might want to do is the, excuse me. Another thing you might want to do is the hit stars. So in my case, I'm just going to go over changing the model of a hit star. You can do more, but I'll make separate tutorials for that. So in my case, SMD SO010 star 1. You can see that's the star. I'm going to export that. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a custom little star here. Okay, so now I have my cool custom star. Going to now import PSK, go to that star. And so it's going to be wherever you exported it, effects, WEP, SO010, model, star. And then I'm going to take my custom star and I'm going to size it and orient it the same. So, or at least roughly the same. Doesn't need to be exact, but then I'm going to do the same sort of thing. I'm going to select all of the vertices. So in edit mode, press A, select all the vertices of my custom one. Select the base game one, edit mode, Alt A, deselect all of them, then select custom, shift, click, base game, Control J, tab, Control I, XF, and then delete the UV map. And then file, export, FBX. Again, same name as the one you are replacing, so SMD SO010 stir1, export. And then go back into Unreal, into the same effects web model folder, import that star. And then again, I can get rid of the material and textures as we do not need it. And then save. Some Keyblades will have more than one star. Some Keyblades will only have one. Some Keyblades have textures, which is the same exact process. You just extract, edit, and re-import in the same place with the same file name. But yeah, so in my case, it's just models. Excuse me. Okay, so that's it for the effects, the summon effect and the hit stars. Next is the UI images. So what I'm going to do, since I don't already have a standalone art of it, I'm going to make a screenshot of it really quickly. I'm going to open, actually I'm going to go to the skeleton so that I can rotate the bones. How I want. So this is kind of a little bit of a cheaty way of doing it, but I think it's fine. Oh, and then I forgot to make sure your Keyblade in the material slot has the right material assigned to it, because I forgot to change mine to my material instance. I just noticed because it was missing the details. So just make sure that is, and then save. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to screenshot this really quickly. And then I'm going to go into here. And I'm going to remove the background. Okay, I went ahead and cut there because it was taking too long. But what we're going to do, you now have an image with transparent background. I'm going to Control A, Control C, copy it, make a new one, 1024 by 1024. It doesn't strictly need to be this. Make sure it's a square, but it doesn't strictly need to be this resolution, but make sure it's a square. I like to do 1024 by 1024 because I believe that's what the base game uses. Do Control A and then delete to delete everything, and then paste, keep canvas size. Hold Shift to keep the proportions when you're resizing. And there you go. Now it's positioned right. I like to add a drop shadow as well, but it's not strictly necessary. It just adds a little bit to the image. And then File, Save As. Now to figure out what you need to name this one, in link in the description, I'm going to include a link to this website. This is the LockRes editor. We're going to be using this in a second, but basically, go ahead and do choose files in my tutorial files folder. Wherever that folder is, if I can scroll down to it. There we go, tutorial files. I included localization. This is all of the base game localization, specifically from the Steam version. It still works perfectly fine with the Epic Games version, so if you have Epic, don't worry about it, still use these. But Steam version has something added for the Dead of Night Keyblade, which I have a separate tutorial for that. So I'm not going to be going over replacing Dead of Night as well as Elemental Encoder at the same time in the same mod, because I already have a tutorial for that, so go watch that if you want to do that. EN is English, but these are all the languages. In my case, I'm going to be using EN English. Scroll down to KH3 item, open it, do load, and then edit. And then 01, and 01 is Kingdom Key, 02 is Hero's Origin. This is going to be what you're going to name the image for the Keyblade. This is the number you're going to be using for the name of the Keyblade for every case except Elemental Encoder. As you can see, Elemental Encoder is 15, or Elemental Encoder and Dead of Night. They are both 15 and 16. When you're saving the images, you're going to be using the number 17 for Elemental Encoder and or Dead of Night. Again, they use the same thing. I go over replacing both of them, which if you ever are replacing Elemental Encoder or Dead of Night, I recommend doing both for the sake of compatibility for everybody. But yeah, that's in a separate tutorial. But for both of these cases, it's going to be 17, not 15 or 16. Everything else, the number matches. But so in my case, it's Kingdom Key. So we're going to save this image twice. Once as Keyblade 01, same number, including the leading 0. And then file, save as weapon 001. So this is going to be 3 numbers rather than just the 2. So if it's 01, add another leading 0. If it's 17, it's going to be 017. Next is going to be just the keychain, which in my case should be able to just color pick this whole thing, I think. And let me deselect the chain. So this is going to be, you need the chain for the Moogle Forge. There's just another icon in there. I'm going to make this 256 by 256. Again, size doesn't matter too much. It should be smaller and still a square, though. Let me just resize this. That's pretty good. And then repeat drop shadow. The quality of this doesn't need to be quite as much because it's a much smaller thing, but you can do whatever you want for this. And this is going to be chain top with a capital T and then the same number without the, it's just the number itself. So 01, you don't need another leading 0 like the weapon one. Alrighty, so now that we have those 3 saved, go back into Unreal. I can close this now. Oh, actually, shoot. Let me... Okay, it didn't save. Good. Then go into your content folder, make a new folder called UI. Inside there, make a folder called Icon. Inside there, make 2 folders, one called Item and one called Keyblade. Item, import. In here, you're going to want to import just the weapon one. Double click it. Change MIPGen settings to no mipmaps and sRGB, uncheck it, and then save. Then go to the Keyblade folder, import chaintop and Keyblade, and then change the same settings for both of these 2. And save. And then that's it. For the purposes of my tutorial, that is all we need to do in Unreal Engine. There is more that you can do. I am going to be making separate tutorials for some more in-depth stuff, but this is just the simplest, most bare bones, most necessary things in my opinion. So that's all we need to do in Unreal. or the last thing we need to do is file and cook content for Windows. That will cook the files, which basically encrypts them and gets them ready to be used in game. Excuse me. In the folder for where you're making your mod and saving all your stuff, make a new folder. This is going to be the name of your .pack file. As you can see, I already have it here because I was in progress of this mod already, like I said. Inside there, make a folder called Kingdom Hearts III in all caps for Kingdom Hearts 3. Inside there, make a folder called Content. And then, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and delete these so I can just redo them. So, then in your content folder, you're going to want to wait. In your Unreal project folder, where you have the U project, go into Saved, Cooked, Windows No Editor, Trays Game, and then Content, we're going to wait for it to finish cooking before we go in there. This could take a minute, but just give it a sec. What we're going to be doing is moving everything from the cooked files into the into our mod folder. Okay, so now cooking is complete. Go into Content. Select Character, Effects, and UI, and Shader. If you're using Apros or Mine, you need to have Shader selected. Move these, copy them over to your mod folder. First things first, go into Shader, delete Material Set and MF Set. Those are just base game textures and stuff that Apro used. So he's just referencing the base game ones, and we don't want to replace the base game ones because that could cause issues. So just don't worry about those. Just delete them, and then leave Apromats and Dalmats. Don't delete anything. If you had the cooking settings set up, it should only, or if you had the, like in the edit project settings, packaging, if you have these folders set up properly, and you have this this setting turned off and cook only maps turned on, if that's set up properly, it should have only cooked the files that you used. So, and you can see I had more in that folder, but there's just the one that I used. And in the case of Apros, it's just the material functions that are used, that sort of thing. So the only thing you need to do is the material set and MF set, because those are the base game references that we don't need to mess with. Next, in character, WEP, your folder, model, you're going to want to delete, keep the model itself, which is just the WSO_0, and your custom skeleton. Keep those. Everything else delete, because those are all base game files that we are referencing and don't need to replace. In Mat0, you shouldn't need to worry about any of these. Don't delete any of these. Now, finally, what we're going to be doing is the localization or text edits, which we pulled up earlier, which is this folder. So to make a text edit, what you want to do in KH3 item, basically you're going to want to delete everything except the lines you are editing. So I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to leave Kingdom Key. Then I'm going to scroll down to Detail KB01. This is the equipment menu description for it. Delete everything in between those two, and delete everything after it. So in my case, I actually haven't gotten the name for this Keyblade yet, so I'm just going to do the name test, and make this test description. And then let's say I also want to change the name of second form. I'm going to make this test form. And then what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to edit this file name, leave the .lockrest, but I'm going to make this this is what I want to name it. I like to just do like the name of the Keyblade. Again, I don't have it yet. and then the keyword that it's, or an abbreviation of the keyword that it's replacing, and then lock en, or whichever language you're doing. You don't have to do this. Just make sure it's not the same name of any of the Kingdom Hearts, the base Kingdom Hearts 3 ones. Make sure it's a unique name to you. So this is why I like to do this, because it just makes sure it's a unique name. Import from text, we're not going to save yet, because see how I edited the name of second form? That just changes it in the UI, or in the equipment menu. If I want to actually change the reaction command's name, we also want to choose files and go to KH3 system. I'm going to load and edit that one. Then I'm going to control F, and I'm going to search for situation, this name section. I'm going to go all the way up. Delete everything after file, and then we're going to once again control F and then look for second form, or whichever form you're renaming. Delete everything between that and the name. And then in this case, I'm just going to copy them like this. So copy both of these lines and go back into the one we had earlier by clicking edit and then pasting it in so that everything's in the same file. So we only have one loggers file. So in my case, I just named it test form, and then I'm going to import from text again. And now I'm going to save, and now it pops up here. Click the blue link. It'll download it. I like to cut it from the downloads folder rather than copy it, so that when if I ever make any edits later, which I'm going to in this case because I need to rename them properly, I can just paste and replace the one that's over here later. So in your mod folder in content, make a folder called localization. In localization, make a folder called game. And then in game, make a folder for whatever language you're editing. In my case, it's EN. It should match whichever folder you found the KH3 item and KH3 system folders in. And then paste your localization. And that's it. That's the mod. If you remember from previous tutorials, we used a program called USEdge UI. We don't strictly need that anymore unless you do some more in-depth stuff. Custom materials make things so nice. Yeah, Unreal Pack compression. Oh, I should note, you need a program called Unreal Pack. I kind of skipped over that, my bad. Basically, it's going to come with Unreal Pack.exe, Unreal Pack with compression.bat, and Unreal Pack without compression.bat. To make your mod folder into a pack file, all you need to do is drag it onto Unreal Pack with compression. However, if you want to make it a little bit easier, you'll notice I have some shortcuts here. I'm going to delete those. What I recommend doing, right-click and then create shortcut. And then I recommend renaming it Unreal Pack Compression, something like that, just so it's not a long file name with the like dash shortcut at the end. And do the same with without compression. Then on your search bar, type run, do this, shell : send to, and click OK. That'll open a new folder, which is your send to folder. You notice I already have these in here. I have 3 shortcuts: the compression, no compression, and unpack. I have all 3 of those in my send to folder. What this does is makes it so you can right click and do send to, and then just click Unreal Pack compression, and that does that automatically. It's super duper nice. Makes things a lot quicker, so you don't have to have another folder open like I do here. But that'll make the pack file. We're going to copy it. We're then going to go to my mods folder. Going to paste it in here. And I am going to launch the game. I have a button on my Stream Deck to do that for me. Give it just a second to launch. I know this has been a long tutorial. It's a long process. I know I rambled a lot. I'll try and cut out some of it at least. And I stumbled over my words a lot. Again, I apologize. But I struggle to make these really structured. So, and I hope this helps regardless. But what we're going to do, continue game. And then for the sake of showing off the hit stars, I'll probably go ahead and give you a little bit of preview of the Daybreak Town that I'm working on. Daybreak Town mod that I'm working on, rather. Just wait for the game to load up. All right. Go into equipment, see test description. But yeah, and then if I switch to him back from it, here we have the custom Keyblade. Looks very cool. Now I'll go show the Moogle Forge icon. This is the most ideal map to do this in, but probably should have just loaded into the Garden of Assemblage like I usually do, but it doesn't really matter. But we'll go ahead into the next room to show the Moogle Forge, and then we'll go back and I'll go into my Daybreak Town mod to show the hit stars and stuff.
Sure are a lot of walls.
Workshop, Keyblade Forge. There we go. Very cool.
Come on, fellas.
Alright, and then go into Daybreak Town here. Go to some of my enemy spawns. It might be kind of hard to see, but just to show it off. You can see there. That's that. Again, I do plan on actually making more tutorials. I plan on making a Kingdom Hearts 2 weapon tutorial, and a bunch of other Kingdom Hearts 2 tutorials that they're just add-ons to weapons like sounds, swapping out sound effects for the ones that are in the game, swapping out hit stars for those that are in the game, editing those hit stars, etc. But yeah, if y'all are learning from this, I hope. Thanks. See you.